3:38 a.m. The Sea of Japan, 311 miles northeast of the North Korean port of Cheongjin. No moon. Water temperature 31 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface, dropping to 26 degrees at depth. The kind of cold that incapacitates an unprotected man in 7 minutes and slows every mechanical system aboard a submarine by margins that matter. Total darkness above and below. Visibility at periscope depth. Absolute zero in every direction. The sea in this part of the world in early February was as close to the absence of all things as it was possible to find on the surface of the Earth. 214 meters below that surface, running northeast at 7 knots on a heading of 048, something was moving. The Korean People's Navy's submarine was not fast. It was not quiet by modern standards. It was not equipped with the kind of anechoic tile coating that made Russian or American submarines whisper through the water at speeds that should have been impossible. It was old and loud, and its diesel-electric propulsion system produced a mechanical signature that had been in the U.S. Navy's Acoustic Intelligence Library since the vessel's sea trials 4 years earlier. What it carried, however, was not old. What it carried was the reason every P-8 Poseidon within 400 miles had been repositioned to cover this patch of ocean 41 hours ago in its single modified torpedo tube, a tube that had been enlarged and structurally reinforced over an 18-month period at the Sinpo South Shipyard in a construction project that NRO satellite imagery had been monitoring with increasing alarm, sat a weapon that North Korean state media had never publicly acknowledged, and whose existence the Korean People's Army's General Staff had confirmed only to a circle of fewer than 30 senior officials. A nuclear-armed underwater autonomous vehicle. A weapon the Western intelligence community had designated, in their classified assessments, as the Hail-2, modeled in concept on Russia's Poseidon system. A slow, deep-running nuclear warhead delivery vehicle designed not for precision strike, but for area denial, for the creation, in the shallow waters of a coastal target zone, of a radioactive contamination event of sufficient scale to render an entire harbor and its surrounding coastline unusable for decades. Its assigned target was the port of Yokohama, Japan's largest commercial port, 40 kilometers south of Tokyo, 37 million people in the greater metropolitan area. The weapon had been in the water for 11 hours. The submarine had released it from a pre-planned deployment point 340 miles southwest of its current position, then continued northeast to the secondary launch position from which, if the autonomous vehicle failed to complete its mission for any reason, the commanding officer had authorization to fire a second Hail-2 from the modified tube. The redundancy had been built into the operational plan because Pyongyang understood that autonomous underwater vehicles were subject to navigation drift, mechanical failure, and the acoustic environment of the deep ocean in ways that ballistic missiles were not. One vehicle was already running. One was still aboard. Together, they were the most dangerous thing North Korea had ever sent toward Japan. The operational concept was grimly elegant. Unlike a ballistic missile, the Hail-2 produced no launch plume detectable by SBIRS. Unlike a cruise missile, it flew no air-breathing profile detectable by radar. It ran deep and slow through the cold water of the Sea of Japan at approximately 30 knots, following a pre-programmed waypoint route, producing an acoustic signature that was, at depth, difficult to distinguish from the natural ambient noise of a busy commercial shipping lane. The KPN's strategic planners had spent 3 years working through the detection problem and had concluded, based on their assessment of US and Japanese undersea surveillance capabilities, that the Hail-2 had a better than 70% probability of reaching its target undetected. Their assessment was wrong, by a margin that would have been incomprehensible to them, because the KPN had made 5 catastrophic mistakes. The first mistake: they had based their acoustic detection assessment on the performance parameters of the fixed distributed system, the legacy Cold War-era hydrophone network in the Sea of Japan, and had assessed its detection probability against the Hail-2's acoustic signature at approximately 31%. That assessment did not account for the Distributed Agile Submarine Hunting System, DASH, a classified undersea sensor architecture that had been quietly installed across the Sea of Japan floor over a 4-year period and whose existence had not been publicly acknowledged by any US or Japanese government official. DASH was not a legacy hydrophone array. It was a network of autonomous underwater sensor nodes, each capable of machine learning-assisted acoustic classification, distributed in a pattern specifically designed to cover the approach corridors from North Korean coastal waters to the Japanese home islands. The Hale-2 had been acquired by DASH at 4:19 p.m. the previous afternoon, 3 hours and 22 minutes after its deployment. It had been tracked continuously since that moment. The second mistake: they believed the submarine itself was operating undetected. It was not. USS Connecticut, a Seawolf-class fast attack submarine with the most sophisticated passive sonar system ever installed on an undersea vessel, had been trailing the KPN submarine at a distance of 11 nautical miles for the previous 27 hours. USS Connecticut had acquired the contact the morning after the KPN submarine departed Sinpo, tracking its acoustic signature through the deepwater channel east of the Korean peninsula. Her commanding officer had reported the contact to Pacific Fleet, assessed the submarine's modified torpedo tube configuration from close-range acoustic analysis, and recommended immediate action. Pacific Fleet had assessed his recommendation as critical priority. The pre-authorized response package had been activated at 6 p.m. the previous evening. The third mistake: the Hale-2's navigation system used a combination of inertial guidance and acoustic Doppler correlation against the seafloor topography. The system was accurate to within approximately 300 meters at ranges up to 500 miles, sufficient for an area denial weapon carrying a nuclear warhead measured in tens of kilotons. What the KPN's engineers had not accounted for was that the seafloor topography maps their system used for correlation had been generated from publicly available bathymetric data that contained deliberate errors introduced by NOAA at the request of the US Navy in 2019. Subtle distortions in the depth contours of specific approach corridors, calibrated to introduce navigation drift in systems that relied on those specific data sets. The Hale-2 was experiencing progressive navigation error. At its current position and velocity, it would arrive at Yokohama harbor entrance with a lateral offset of approximately 4 kilometers from its target point. Not enough to prevent catastrophic consequences if it detonated, but enough to slow its approach to its optimal detonation depth, a technical factor that would matter in 31 minutes. The fourth mistake: the KPN commanding officer had been given strict orders not to transmit any communication until after the Hale-2 had completed its mission. Radio silence, no position reports, no status updates, no communication with Pyongyang. This communications discipline had been designed to prevent US signals intelligence from confirming the operation's initiation by detecting a transmission burst. What it meant in practice was that Pyongyang had no real-time awareness of what was happening to their submarine, no ability to issue an abort order if the strategic situation changed, and no knowledge that USS Connecticut had been on their tail for 27 hours. The fifth mistake, the one that made all others academic, was the operational timeline. The Hale-2 had been deployed 11 hours earlier. At 30 knots on its programmed route with its current navigation drift, it would reach its detonation trigger point in 41 more minutes. 41 minutes. That was the window. The pre-authorized response package had been activated 15 hours ago. Every asset required to neutralize both the autonomous vehicle and the submarine had been in position for 11 hours. The window was not tight. It was ample. What happened in the next 29 minutes was the most consequential undersea engagement since the Second World War. Executed at depth, in total darkness, in complete silence, known to no one outside a handful of operations centers and the crews of the vessels involved, leaving no visible trace on the surface of the Sea of Japan. At 3:38 a.m., USS Connecticut's commanding officer received the execute order from Pacific Fleet via extremely low-frequency radio. The order was 2 words in the pre-briefed authentication format. He acknowledged. He ordered Battle Station's Torpedo. His fire control team had been working the HIL-2 tracking problem for 16 hours, receiving updated position data from the dash sensor network via the Pacific Fleet data relay. The HIL-2's current position was precisely known to within 40 meters. Its projected position at the intercept point, the optimal detonation depth where the KPN had programmed it to arm and initiate, was calculated to within 20 meters. The Mark 48 ADCAP torpedo had a terminal guidance system capable of acquiring and homing on a target with a much smaller acoustic signature than the HIL-2 at ranges well within the engagement solution USS Connecticut had prepared. At 3:39 a.m. and 14 seconds, USS Connecticut fired 2 Mark 48 ADCAP heavyweight torpedoes at the HIL-2's projected intercept point. The torpedoes, traveling at 55 knots on their pre-computed intercept trajectory, ran deep, 280 meters below the thermal layer that might have degraded their sonar seeker performance, and turned onto their pursuit course. At 3:39 a.m. and 31 seconds, 17 seconds after the first Mark 48 launch, USS Connecticut fired 2 additional Mark 48 torpedoes at the KPN submarine itself. The submarine's crew heard the torpedo launch transients from USS Connecticut at 3:39 a.m. and 44 seconds, 13 seconds after the first weapon was in the water. The commanding officer ordered emergency deep and maximum speed. At 7 knots, there was no emergency deep. At maximum speed on battery power, the KPN submarine could make 14 knots submerged. The Mark 48 was traveling at 55. The geometry was not survivable. The first Mark 48 targeting the KPN submarine acquired its target on active sonar at a range of 2,000 meters at 3:44 a.m. The terminal acquisition tone was the last sound the sonar operator aboard the KPN submarine registered before the weapon arrived. The KPN submarine sustained a catastrophic kinetic impact amidships at 3:44 a.m. and 31 seconds. The vessel's pressure hull failed immediately. The submarine was removed from the battle space at 240 meters depth. The second Mark 48 passed through the debris field and was safety triggered by its depth pressure fuse at 310 meters. The HIL-2 was a more complex intercept. The autonomous vehicle was running at 200 meters depth. It had no acoustic self-defense capability, no ability to maneuver evasively, no awareness that anything had been fired at it. But it was small, approximately 24 meters long, approximately 2 meters in diameter, and its acoustic signature at depth, while detectable by dash and by USS Connecticut's advanced sonar, was weaker than a conventional torpedo target. The first Mark 48 assigned to the HIL-2 intercept searched its assigned acquisition zone at 3:47 a.m. and found nothing. Its seeker head swept the water column across a 60-degree arc. Nothing in the expected position band. The dash network reported the HIL-2's updated position at 3:47 a.m. and 11 seconds. The navigation drift had increased. The vehicle was running 110 meters south of its projected track, a lateral offset that had placed it outside the first Mark 48's acquisition cone. USS Connecticut's fire control team updated the intercept solution in real time. The second Mark 48 was still running toward its programmed search point. A course correction command was transmitted via the torpedo's guidance wire at 3:47 a.m. and 19 seconds. The Mark 48 seeker acquired the HIL-2 at 3:48 a.m. and 4 seconds, at a range of 490 meters. The seeker's signal was weak. The target was small, but 490 meters at 55 knots was a 5-second flight time. At 3:48 a.m. and 9 seconds, the Mark 48's shape-charge warhead detonated against the HIL-2's propulsion section. The detonation was assessed by USS Connecticut's sonar as a total kinetic event, complete structural failure of the target vehicle. The HIL-2's nuclear warhead, designed to be initiated by a specific arming and triggering sequence that required the vehicle to reach its programmed detonation depth and receive its final arming signal, was destroyed by the torpedo impact before any element of that sequence could execute. No nuclear event occurred. No radioactive release occurred. The Hail-2's nuclear material, a subcritical fissile assembly, was scattered in fragments across a debris field at 220 meters depth in the Sea of Japan. Recovery operations, which would be conducted by the DSV limiting factor under classified naval contract over the following 6 weeks, would eventually recover approximately 70% of the material from the debris field. At 3:51 a.m., 13 minutes after the execute order, USS Connecticut's commanding officer transmitted a 2-word mission completion report to Pacific Fleet. The Sea of Japan was quiet. The surface above showed nothing. No debris reached the surface from either engagement. The water temperature was 31 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sea was flat and dark, and entirely unaware of what had just happened 200 meters below it, in the operations centers that had been watching. The Pacific Fleet Submarine Warfare Command at Pearl Harbor, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force headquarters in Tokyo, the National Military Command Center at the Pentagon. The confirmation of mission completion produced a tension release that had been building for 41 hours. The threat to Yokohama had been neutralized. 37 million people in the greater Tokyo metropolitan area would go to work that morning, with no knowledge of how close the morning had come to being something else entirely. The response package did not end with the undersea engagement. At 4 a.m., Pacific Fleet transmitted the pre-authorized strike package to the air assets that had been holding at their pre-brief positions for 16 hours. The strikes were not punitive in the conventional sense. They were targeted specifically at the infrastructure that had enabled the Hail-2 program to exist and that could enable a successor program, if left intact. From Misawa Air Base in Japan, 8 F-35 A's of the 35th Fighter Wing had been on ground alert since noon the previous day. They launched at 4:02 a.m. and were over North Korean airspace by 4:41 a.m. on their stealth profiles, completely invisible to the KPN's Coastal Air Defense radar network. Their targets: the Sinpo South Shipyard, the facility where the KPN submarine had been modified and where the Hail-2 vehicles had been assembled and prepared, and the underwater vehicle storage and maintenance facility at Myeongdo that the NRO had assessed as containing at least 2 additional Hail-2 vehicles in various states of assembly. The Sinpo South Shipyard was struck at 4:44 a.m. by 16 JASSMER cruise missiles released from standoff range. The missiles targeted the modified submarine construction hall, the autonomous vehicle assembly building, the propulsion testing tank, and the weapons integration facility in a coordinated strike pattern that resulted in total structural collapse of all 4 facilities. The secondary explosions from the propellant stores in the assembly building were visible on thermal imaging from the F-35A platforms at 30 miles. The Sinpo Shipyard, the birthplace of the Hail-2 program, was rendered permanently inoperable in 44 seconds of continuous strikes. The Myeongdo storage facility was struck simultaneously by 8 JASSMERs targeting the hardened vehicle storage bunkers, the maintenance facility, and the access channel through which completed vehicles were transported to their submarine launch platforms. All 3 targets were rendered inoperable. The 2 additional Hail-2 vehicles assessed as being inside the storage bunkers were destroyed by the structural collapse of the bunker complex, combined with the secondary detonation of their propellant sections, triggered by the JASSM warhead detonations. From USS Michigan, an Ohio-class guided missile submarine operating at depth in the Yellow Sea, 12 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles struck the KPN Navy headquarters facility at Pyongyang's Taedong River Naval Annex at 4:51 a.m. The command node that had planned, coordinated, and authorized the Hail-2 deployment. The facility was assessed as having sustained significant structural damage with total loss of command functionality. The Naval Intelligence Section, adjacent to the main building, which housed the targeting analysis and mission planning staff for KPN autonomous weapon operations, was struck directly by 2 Tomahawks and rendered inoperable. 4 additional Tomahawks from USS Michigan struck the KPN's undersea communications relay station at Oncheon. the facility through which any future autonomous vehicle communication protocols would have been routed. At 4:53 a.m., the relay station's antenna infrastructure and hardened command module were rendered inoperable. By 5:17 a.m., 1 hour and 39 minutes after USS Connecticut's execute order, the undersea engagement and the surface strike package were complete. The final accounting was documented by Pacific Fleet and Indopacom Intelligence over the following 72 hours. The HAIL, 2 autonomous nuclear vehicle, neutralized at depth. Nuclear material contained. No nuclear event. No radioactive release. Recovery operation initiated. The KPN submarine that had deployed it, removed from the battle space at 240 meters depth. All personnel aboard assessed as having sustained fatal outcomes following the catastrophic pressure hull failure. No survivors assessed, consistent with depth and impact analysis. The Sinpo South Shipyard, rendered permanently inoperable. All 4 critical facilities in total structural collapse. The Myeongdo storage facility, rendered inoperable. 2 additional HAIL-2 vehicles assessed as destroyed. The KPN Navy Pyongyang Naval Annex, rendered inoperable, command functionality lost. The Oncheon Undersea Communications Relay, rendered inoperable. American casualties across the entire operation, 0. USS Connecticut sustained no damage. The F-35As from Misawa returned to base without incident, all aircraft accounted for. USS Michigan completed her strike mission and returned to patrol depth. No American personnel wounded. No American assets damaged. In Tokyo, the morning began. Normally, the Yokohama port opened at its standard time. The container terminals began their first shifts. The ships moved in and out of the harbor mouth on their scheduled routes, their crews unaware that at 3:48 a.m. that morning, 9 seconds and 490 meters had stood between the continuation of that normality and something that the world had not seen since August 1945. In Pyongyang, the Korean Central News Agency broadcast the morning's revolutionary music program at 6 a.m. as it did every morning. No announcement was made about the submarine. No announcement was made about the HAIL-2. The families of the submarine's crew would receive no official notification for 11 days, when the KPN quietly updated its personnel records. The KPN's Strategic Autonomous Weapon Program, the program that had been in development for 4 years, that had consumed resources that the North Korean defense budget could barely sustain, that had been presented to Kim Jong-un as the weapon that would finally give the DPRK an untraceable, undefendable first strike capability against Japan, was by 5:17 a.m. on a February morning, a debris field at depth and a series of structural collapse sites visible on satellite imagery by noon. The Sea of Japan is cold and dark and very deep. It keeps many things beneath its surface. On this February morning, it kept the most dangerous weapon North Korea had ever built. Neutralized, inert, scattered across the seafloor, posing no further threat to any of the 37 million people who woke up that morning in the greater Tokyo area and went about their Wednesday without knowing what the night had held. This is what happens when you build an untraceable weapon and send it through waters that have been listening to every sound for 20 years. This is what happens when your 70% probability of success assessment is built on acoustic library data, bathymetric charts, and surveillance intercepts that were, in every meaningful dimension, exactly what someone wanted you to find. The Sea of Japan is quiet. USS Connecticut is on her next patrol. The waters between Korea and Japan are watched, in the total silence of the deep, by the most capable undersea force in human history. The watch continues.